303 Martino.
Won't you please help me?
Hi, Tom Martino here. Welcome to the show. 303-713-TALK, 303-713-8255. A lot to talk about today. We'll recap what's going on in the news. And then we'll also, of course, interview my investigator. And then we'll get some other comments from you guys on the phones. But we'll also take your other problems, questions, and complaints as always. As Peter would say, a remarkable day. A remarkable day. Yeah, I'll do that. Thanks, Peter. All right, so Peter and I are shifting studios right now, as we do every day at this time. And bottom line is this, if you're just tuning in. Sheriff Pat Sullivan was arrested last night. Now, we were not surprised. We were surprised it happened so quickly, but I knew it was coming. And I knew it because the Troubleshooter Network handed over everything they had. Jonathan Elinoff, the lead investigator, who did all of it, and I don't mean investigator for the cops, I mean for us. He ran down a lead that came into our office and came back to me with such an incredible story. I almost laughed at him. I remember the night he calls me. Well, first of all, we get a call from somebody who says he needs help. He doesn't know how to get out of this sex ring, this traffic ring. He thinks he's going to be hurt. Now, I'm not going to give a lot of information on that one right now, but I will say this. It was enough for Jonathan to take an interest in this, Jonathan Elinoff. He has his own website and stuff, and he's been working with me for a while. We've had some heated discussions over this. I think that's an understatement. Because at first I'm thinking, we're wasting our time. We're talking to a bunch of meth heads. What's going on? Jonathan, I need to ask you something. When you heard this and you started running it down, you thought we had a story. Then you would meet with me, and I'd say, well, let's try this. Then we'd reconvene, we'd talk. We had we met with a guy. We interviewed him. Eventually, I want to make this clear. We both decided we should go to the police immediately, right? Once we knew there was some credibility here, right, Jonathan? And the reason is we don't want to be an accessory. We don't want kids getting hurt. We don't want people getting hurt. So we went to the police. 2 days later, or the same day, they start their investigation. And 2 weeks, boom, he's busted. That's what happened. No matter what anyone tries to tell you, that's what happened. We handed everything over to him. Jonathan, what made you, seriously now, I got to ask you, what made you think there was a story here? Because it was so outrageous. Even Mike, you remember sitting there in the office and we were having this discussion. Do we pursue this thing? What's going on? Mike says, this sounds too freaking incredible. I mean, not that we wouldn't look into it, but why did you, Jonathan, think? Why did you think? We thought it was because you're half crazy. We said, Jonathan, why do you think there's a story here? And you just felt it in your gut. Why is that? I just need to ask that. Why is that?
You start getting these corroborating statements from all these different people who don't know each other.
But you talked to one guy first, and you were really, really feeling strongly about it first. You just felt like there was something there.
Yeah, I mean, look, you meet him, he was calm, he was collect, he was very focused. My concern was, look, if there's any truth to this, I need some documentation. He was showing me documents and some hidden camera footage, but he wasn't feeling comfortable giving them to me. So I knew I had to meet with you so that I could say, look, I've got this guy who's scared and not wanting to give me very much.
Right. And come up with some tactics and some strategies. Then you met with me. And I wasn't totally against it. I said, yeah, let's pursue this. But then we had, I don't know if you call it a falling out, but a disagreement in that you thought, and many people would think, that if you had a lot of people who collaborated, who all confirmed the story, and you had some hidden cameras and some audio, you felt we could have gone with the story.
That's right.
Yeah. And I felt, I'm not sure, to go on the air right now and accuse Sheriff Pat Sullivan of doing all of this, we need something more. We do have some hidden camera tape with him in a room with this woman. We do have some other stuff. So I will tell you that we do have this stuff. But they won't bother me here in the studio, by the way. So you start looking into it and you talk to a half dozen people. What was the central theme of the story? And by the way, folks, if you want to comment on this story, 303-713-TALK, 303-713-8255. Of course, I'll take other calls as well. And we're going to open up the other line, 303-MARTINO, 303-627-8466. I'm talking to Jonathan Elinoff, my investigator at the Troubleshooter Network. We got this story shortly after this guy turned himself in, using me as a witness because he didn't want to get beat up by the police. He said he trusted me. This other guy called because he trusted us. Jonathan won all of their trust. I'd like to tell you I went out every night with him on these stories, but I didn't. I did one interview and I did some other phone calls and we discussed things. But Jonathan, what was the central theme?
The central theme was that I started to see methamphetamine distribution at the center of it. I started to see young men alleging drugs for sex, common locations, a lot of different people who didn't know each other with the same stories, and then Pat Sullivan inside of that network. And so it started to looking to
Even
me,
when people didn't know each other, they mentioned Sullivan.
Right. So it started to looking to me like this is a much larger picture than Sullivan, but Sullivan's a part of it. Everywhere I went inside the investigation, every location I went, every person I talked to, they all had the same thing to say about Sullivan. They said, oh yeah, he's a frequent visitor. He's a frequent attendee. We know him. He comes in here all the time. And that's pretty much everywhere I went.
Did it shock you that he did not use a fake identity or disguise himself?
No, he was very open about it, and everyone knew him by name. And he, and this is the problem, is that when I first looked into it, it was consensual sex among adults, and I didn't really think there was a major issue there.
Right. You just thought he was just out having fun.
Right.
And then a lot of them said no, he controls people with drugs.
Right, and that's where I started investigating, and then I came across a couple of alleged victims.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it. And these victims, had alleged sexual assault at an early age, some of them minors, with Pat Sullivan. And when you look at it in the long run, it starts looking more like, well, statutes of limitations, this, that, and the other. So I wasn't quite sure. I was like, look, do you guys want to press charges? Do you want to go public? What do you want to do? And they said, well, we got HIV from him. And I was like, wait a second. How do you know that? And so I started investigating that thread.
And more than one person told us that they got HIV from Sheriff Pat Sullivan.
Right.
Okay, now, we have reason to believe, I'm going to tell you, we're not coming out with anything right now, but we have reason to believe there might be other law enforcement people active, or they were active, involved in this.
That's right.
We actually caught, and I'm just going to say it, but we're not going to use names, okay, right now, because I don't want to feed the other people out there when you do all the work, right? We actually saw one of these guys, a top-ranking law enforcement official, posing with a fake identity.
That's right.
Yes. And
coming in contact.
And he pretended to be someone else, and he was at a meeting, and he was not investigating anything at that time. It was too weird.
Reconnaissance.
We also feel like there are some other high-powered people around town that take part in these social clubs. Explain without giving details of locations and where they are and what are these social clubs? What are they? Is it a bar?
Well,
is it a rest? Well, and I don't want to say that, but I mean, what is the setting? Because you did go inside. What is the setting?
Well, there are bathhouses. Bathhouses are around town. Those are gentlemen's clubs by membership only. They're open 24 hours, and men can go in there and they can have a private room and they do what they want to do to each other, and it's kind of like one of those environments. And I went to a couple of these locations where Sullivan had alleged interaction with some of the people I was meeting, and I just, out of curiosity, wanted to see how easy it was to get in and how easy it was to just snoop around, just get some ideas, get some facts. And I was quite surprised that there were figures walking in the parking lot, staring at me, looking at me, and then they'd go meet up in the corner and they'd talk to each other, and it was pretty obvious.
So they didn't even ask for identification or anything? You didn't have to have a password to get in? It was just open?
It was open, except for you needed to press a buzzer for someone to come to the inside window in order to be let in. I didn't go that far.
All right.
I went far enough to go in and see just how it operated in the best I could without having to go too far. I wanted to go further, but I didn't have the kind of entourage I needed.
All right, by the way, Jonathan Elinoff, my investigator who did the work on this story, we turned it over to police. As a result, you heard it, there was an arrest. We are going to take other calls as well because that's what I have to do, and then Jonathan is going to stay here to take questions and to talk more about this investigation. Jim, you have a comment, sir.
Yes. I'm really glad to finally see something's being investigated in Arapahoe County. I think they've been corrupt for years. I've had run-ins with them. Their internal affairs is absolutely unprofessional. And I think there ought to be a state-level investigation of Arapahoe County Sheriff's Department.
Well, there just might be, but I don't want to make it sound like all of the fine people at Arapahoe are smeared by this. Jonathan, I don't think we can say that we found a lot of active law enforcement people at Arapahoe County right now are dirty.
No, I have some leads on some stories that I have to investigate. I'm getting contacts by a lot of people right now. So I can't say. But I can say that there are stories that I'm looking into.
Right. And by the way, live at troubleshooter.com, if you have anything you want to investigate, live at troubleshooter.com. And I'm going to take other calls as well, okay? I really will. So, Jonathan, sit tight. We will talk. If you're just tuning in, we're also talking about the Pat Sullivan case. As you may have heard, it all started with a phone call to my show. A young man asked for help. He said he was addicted to meth. He said he was being used for sex by Pat Sullivan, and he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to get out of it. Jonathan Elinoff, my investigator, went out and looked into it and found several victims. You talked to about a half a dozen people, Jonathan?
Yeah, about a half dozen I met, another half dozen I was trying to find, but I was unable to meet with.
And the central theme, sex
for drugs. I mean, they were all meth addicted and looking for a way out, but with no money and no place to go, you're kind of given no options. And people exploiting that environment, those people were just being used.
And we did do some interviews, and I cut just some sound bites up for the next hour. I'll play them. And Jonathan, you feel from your investigation, and I do, of course, because we shared in this, and you did the heavy lifting, the legwork, that there are other arrests probably that will come eventually.
Absolutely. I mean, the problem is that Sullivan is one chapter of a much larger story here, which is
trafficking.
Trafficking. I mean, let's call it what it is, trafficking. I mean, this is drugs for sex. These are people who are exploiting a community that they're familiar with. They know how to tap into. They know where to get them. As long as you know where the meth is, they know where the guys are and or the girls. And there's recruits. There's people out there getting people hooked constantly. So it's a network. It's an apparatus, if you will.
It sounds like something your mother would tell you. It doesn't sound like that it's real. That it's real. Philip has a question on the case. Philip, welcome to the Tom Martino Show. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning. Jonathan is one of the clubs, Zimmerman's clubs that you were talking about. Does it have a blue awning on the outside of it in the far left corner of a parking lot downtown?
I did go to a facility. Are you? We're not going to give the names of the facilities yet.
I'm a recovering crystal meth addict.
Yes.
And I in one of the gentlemen's clubs that I used to frequent a lot, that had a lot of crystal meth use in it. I mean, you could walk in the door.
Mm-hmm.
You could walk in the door, and within 30 to 45 minutes, if you knew the right people, and if you knew the right people, within 30 to 45 minutes, you could get almost any amount.
How long have you been off meth?
15 and a half months.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 15 minutes or something. No,
15 and a half.
I was just kidding. By the way, Philip, and I don't want to fool around about this. I want to ask you something. Did you have to sell yourself for sex, for drugs?
Well, if you not in the typical way that.
Well, how'd you pay for your meth? Let's just ask you that. How'd you pay for it?
By in cash.
Okay, so you were not a prostitute for drugs.
No, I was not. But when you sell when you end up when I finally got into recovery,
Yes.
you realize that you may not be physically selling yourself for sex, but you're selling your soul.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I'm really happy that you've been off for 15 and a half months. I'm very serious. That's a wonderful thing. Jeff has a comment. Jeff, welcome to the show. I'm Tom Martino on Talk Radio 630 KHOW.